You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
WCYTV.
Here on the Daily Signal.
Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. It's good to be with you because, boy, howdy, since I've been away in our festering nation's capital, I bet you'd think, oh, Tony's up to date on the news because he's like, where all of the news is going on. No, because I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off after various press conferences. And it was at one of those press conferences. After I covered the event, it was a U.S. Department of Agriculture press conference, which I'm sure just as soon as you hear Department of Agriculture, your blood starts pumping. You're like, oh yeah, love me some USDA. And I showed up to this press conference because our White House press correspondent, Elizabeth Mitchell, was attending different press conferences. And because it's the 100-day into the Trump administration and everyone was everywhere. So I showed up and got to see Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, and the Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, give probably one of the most crucial press conferences I've ever seen. And unfortunately, I've watched a lot of press conferences. And when I got back to my hotel room that evening, the next day when I was working on a couple of articles and various reports and things for different shows over at the Daily Signal, I looked at the rest of the news and the things that the media was talking about regarding the Trump first 100 days. I looked through as much as I could on what MSNBC on the far left, all the way over to what Breitbart on the right was talking about, and I was kind of blown away. Because when I showed up to this press conference, I was in a blue suit, nice blue tie. I was wearing my boots, but that's about the only thing that was out of place for a kind of a guy behind the press line at any event. And I stood there in rapt attention, sweating it to death because wearing a suit in the sun, taking notes on this incredible press conference about a small cattle and sow ranching and farming family from South Dakota. And what I discovered listening to that press conference, listening to the governor of South Dakota, listening to Representative Johnson from South Dakota, of course, Kristi Noem, and Secretary Brooke Rollins, what I came away with was that no one is talking about the biggest victory of the first 100 days of the Trump administration. People want to criticize that the economy isn't exactly the way they want it to be in 100 days. They say, well, but we need to celebrate the illegal immigration in the border, and that is absolutely something to celebrate. Well, we need to talk about various cabinet members getting into fights. We need to talk about DOJ. We need to talk about, and all of these various things that have bubbled up are not the biggest victory for people in the United States of America. The biggest victory is that the Trump administration has reversed decades of bureaucratic government tyranny. And that the fourth branch of government, which was never supposed to be anywhere remotely this large or even a fraction as powerful as it currently is, this federal bureaucracy of executive agencies, which Congress, on its lazy cans, abdicated its power of passing laws to these agencies who passed regulations and rules so that presidents could rule by executive order, that has crushed hundreds of thousands in individual cases in the United States over the last century. This Wilsonian imperialist Germany during the Kaiser's reign kind of government. It ruined the United States. It ruined it. And when Trump came in after dealing with it tooth and nail in his first administration, people say the first administration was chaotic. After looking at what we know now about how people in the bureaucracy operate that were never elected, that were never confirmed by the Senate. They just went in straight out of their graduate program from some Ivy League school and worked in these agencies for 20, 30, 40 years, closely tied to Democrat groups, receiving fraudulent money, corruptly enacting rules and regulations that are unconstitutional. These agencies have ruined lives, have stripped people of their property, of their children, have ruined U.S. foreign relations, the U.S. economy, have engaged in actions that have delivered guns to Mexican cartels, and all other manner of pure unadulterated evil. And it was at this agriculture press conference. I'm standing next to a guy who's from, I kid you not, it's called The Fence Post. That's the name of the publication. It's an agriculture journal outlet, which is really creative, The Fence Post. I like that. And there I am, this general, political guy, hearing why the Trump administration halted the federal prosecution that began last year of the Maud family, in which two parents were both charged because the Biden administration's Forestry Service with the USDA went after them because their cattle had a dispute on the fence line with their particular farm in Pennington County, South Dakota, up against this national grasslands reserve area. And according to the Mods, there was an informal agreement with the Forestry Service, which happens. Informal agreements happen all the time. And then one day, the Biden administration decided no. And so over 25 acres, which if you know anything about cattle ranching, that's not a lot of land at all, decided to come in and charge both of the two parents. And this fifth generation farm, it's been owned since the early 1900s by this family, each with theft and purloining, $250,000 fines apiece, and possibly up to 10 years in prison. In fact, a government official told them that they needed to find other options for raising their two kids because they were likely going to be in prison. I didn't hear about this. You didn't hear about this. And it took the Trump administration to finally come in and set things right. Producer Nick, thanks for the clarification. It was acquired exactly in 1910, so just out of the odds. So first of all, here is Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins.
11 days ago, Americans came together to mark the 250th anniversary of a fight for freedom that continues to this day. The commemorations of Lexington and Concord are not mere memorials of a bygone time. The Minutemen, who were farmers and townsmen alike, did not bear arms for causes irrelevant to us now. They were content to be citizens, but they fought because they refused to be subjects. And having exhausted their appeals to an insensible king and a contemptuous parliament across many long years, they knew that only one appeal remained, the appeal to heaven.
The United States has tossed aside any kind of decent and regular rule, especially through the Clinton administration into the Bush administrations, and then, of course, the Trump 1 administration against actively the Trump cabinet, and then through the Biden administration, has tossed away reason to the fleeting whims of federal bureaucrats. And this family had to fight tooth and nail an overtly political prosecution because Biden's administration was furious over 25 acres, as though there aren't enough grass. There's not enough grassland in South Dakota. And have you ever seen the Dakotas? The whole thing's grass. Here's Mrs. Maud. It breaks my heart watching her go through all of this suffering and then talk about it.
And when this hit, it hit at the heart and soul of our place that has been in Charles' family since 1910. They came to the area in 1907 and purchased the adjoining property in 1910 and have managed it without issue and with great care since. And when this unnecessary grievance came to our family, we knew that we were innocent of any wrongdoing, and we sought to find a resolution, and that was not forthcoming from the other side.
And absolutely not. And you say, wait a minute, what does that have to do with anything? They reached out to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. They begged, they pleaded. No one answered them, because that's the real secret of the federal government under the Biden administration. And by the way, not just for people like normal Americans who reach out and have questions about certain decisions and rulings and possibly corrupt bureaucrats, but also congressmen and senators who are supposed to be an accountability force against these federal agencies. Here's Kristi Noem pointing out that for a long time, Biden's departments just gave the middle finger to anybody who reached in asking any question whatsoever.
I have letters in my Department of Homeland Security from senators, from congressmen, from people that didn't get responded to for 4 years. Not even a response of a form letter was sent back to them answering their questions or bringing any transparency to government.
And it doesn't stop there. We're going to talk a little bit more about this while we send the radio crew to commercial. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. the Trump administration going through every single federal agency with the help of Doge and Elon Musk and cutting all of these garbage employees who think they are better than every one of us. And by the way, they do. They think that because they went to some Ivy League school, that you're just some knuckle-dragging Neanderthal who doesn't have the expertise and the degrees in civil service that I have. Oh, I'm so wonderful. To the point that if you disagreed with them, they would overtly surveil you. Again, this was supposed to be some kind of crazy right-wing conspiracy, that if you had a not far to the left opinion, the government wrote your name down. Secretary of State Rubio.
Something else we got out of the business of, well, it wasn't widely reported, or maybe it was. We had an office in the Department of State whose job it was to censor Americans. And by the way, I'm not going to say who it is. I'll leave it up to them. There's at least one person at this table today who had a dossier in that building of social media posts to identify them as purveyors of disinformation. We have these dossiers. We are going to be turning those over to these individuals.
And there you go. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about Secretary Rubio wearing about 15 hats later in the show, and some more quick news in a moment. Of course, we'll talk about Mike Walz. We'll talk about Hegseth's message to Iran. We'll talk about President Trump and new Iranian sanctions and secondary sanctions. But I want to touch just for a second more, if you'll allow me, on the importance that is so understated of the Trump administration rolling back this bureaucratic overreach. There was a class of nobility, there still is in many cases, a class of nobility that if they are let go, they follow Senator Jim Banks around, demanding why he was fired. Did he have some important job in the government? No, he was a jungle activist, some kind of a home activist. That was his job. His job was to audit like the homelessness issues in jungle orientation, which means nothing. He was furious. How dare you fire me? How could you get rid of me? I'm so important to the government. And if you say anything against it, then you'll be on the crap list for eternity. Or until they find good enough reason to either sue you over something and confiscate everything that you have. Try to tell the ATF no when they show up to your door and they shoot your pets. And they drag your children away from you because they suspect you of some kind of terror. Now the media's up in arms about it. Oh my gosh, ICE, broke into a family's home in Oklahoma because, the lease said prior that, it was actually someone else that was living there. Mom, how could, and the media's all over that story. But all of these other stories that occurred, like families, again, 5th generation farm, stripped away from them over 25 acres of grazing rights, as though this guy's under 100 cattle are going to strip South Dakota of grass. It's like stripping the beaches of sand. This is the most important thing the Trump administration has done. That if there was nothing else, that watching these bureaucrats be exposed for the filth that they are, the rights that they have stripped from Americans, the terror they have imposed on good normal people. Ask someone from the Midwest or the Great Plains what they think about the federal government agencies, knowing that any second the federal government can come up with some kind of an excuse. You didn't spray the right pesticides according to this EPA regulation, and take all of your land just like that. They've done it. And without Donald Trump, and I say this wholeheartedly, his very poignant and clear act of revenge on this, we would not be in a better place that we are today, and that mother and father would be dragged off to prison and their children left to raise themselves. We'll be back in a second. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
The Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
All right, boys, girls, and squirrels, let's talk a little bit about the other quick news in the beautiful wide world. So, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth reached out to Iran via X because, I don't know if the Iranians are taking our phone calls at the moment or any kind of calls. After all, most of them threw their pagers away. Secretary Hegseth wrote, "Message to Iran. We see your lethal support to the Houthis. We know exactly what you're doing. You know very well what the U.S. military is capable of, and you were warned." First of all, let's just go ahead and... There we go. "You will pay the consequence at the time and place of our choosing." The Iranians and other countries supply our direct foes, that in case those who threaten the free travel of U.S. vessels through the water, in this case the Houthis, with weapons and missiles and other various military accoutrement. And Iran is allowed to get away with it because there is this horrid fear in a lot of the establishment, including a lot of isolationists who suggest that if we somehow give consequences to Iran, then they're going to do something. No one's ever articulated what that something is. I guess they think that if we reach back and pimp slap Iran, then Putin's going to launch nukes, which he didn't do the last time that we pimp smacked Iran, but that's only a pattern. So there's a lot of screeching and bleeding, and even a representative that I do admire and I think is a really good guy, Representative Thomas Massey. He took the time to say, well, the Secretary of Defense doesn't have the right to declare war on, U.S., any enemy or outside actor. So I want to get this straight. In order to keep U.S. soldiers and sailors from moving about the world, we have to ask Congress every single time someone needs to blow their nose. Yet Congress can't get off its butt and govern instead of the federal agencies. It's got to be one or the other. If Congress actually wants to do something, I'm all ears. But if the Congress only ever wants to restrict the power of the president when it's a conservative administration, I'm sorry, womp womp. Because I don't really hear these bleedings and these cryings when it's somebody else in power. So respectfully, how about no? That brings us over to Mike Walz, National Security Advisor, is out. I found out about this today when I was getting off the plane in Indianapolis, and there was this really nice older gentleman who was walking in front of me, smartly dressed, in a very fine pair of New Balance sneakers to boot. And as I was walking off of the plane, trying not to break the cameras that I had in my carry-on, I got a text saying that we think Mike Walz might be out as National Security Advisor. And that's big news. And so I called, who did I call? I called a friend of mine over at the Daily Signal, and I asked what the source was. And the individual in front of me turned around and said, "Oh yeah, he's gone." And I was a little confused, and I was like, I recognize you, but I'm not entirely sure of how I do. Oh, it was Nebraska Secretary of State Robert B. Evnen. So yeah, Mike Walz is out. He's been removed as the National Security Advisor and now nominated to be the next United States Ambassador to the United Nations, which I do love the take our political editor Bradley Devlin made earlier today. Firing was not good enough as a punishment for Mike Walz, so Trump thought of the worst thing possible. He sent him to the United Nations. I do hope this means that Mike Walz, after being confirmed, is going to walk into the UN, drop a folder of names the U.S. is coming for on the desk, and then say, "Peace out, we're through," and then kick the United Nations out of New York and then turn that entire building into a Buc-ee's. That would be the most American thing that can occur. So the left decided to dunk on this immediately. Had people like Tim Walz saying, "Mike Walz has left the chat." That's funny. And it didn't last very long because, Trump then appointed Walz to somewhere else. What was funny, however, was Tim Walz admitting the only reason that he was Kamala Harris' vice presidential pick, which is the most... He tries to pass this off as masculine, and admitting that he's some kind of a pick-me nerd who's desperate to lick Kamala Harris' heels is probably one of the lamest things I've ever seen out of any politician whatsoever, and that includes dating Fang Fang. Here's Tim Walz.
I knew I was on the ticket, I would argue, because we did a lot of amazing progressive things in Minnesota that improved.
Okay, look at how he starts talking, just right off the bat. It's, "Well, I would guess that, I was some kind of a pick-me because, I would go to the corner store with my lollipop." not a strong start for what he's about to say.
People's lives. But I also was on the ticket, quite honestly, because I could code talk to white guys watching football, fixing their truck, doing that I could put them at ease. I was the permission structure to say, look, you can do this and vote for this. And you look across those swings.
Ah, yes, because nothing connects more to an actual man than, hey there, buddy, you ever considered voting for a black woman? I'm giving you permission to do so, because that's what he said. Oh, you can vote for this. Ah, yes, that was the squeaky wheel that needed the grease. Speaking of the squeaky wheel, the woman whose laugh sounds like Honda brake pads going out is back. Kamala Harris is back, baby. And she's got ideals. So they dragged her out, at the end of Trump's 100 days. They're going to, I don't know, impress us or something. Real special. Here's Kamala Harris out to deliver her stark warning.
But sadly, we have seen quite the opposite over these past few months. Now, I know tonight's event happens to coincide with the 100 days after the inauguration.
Not your 100 days. Oh, sorry, excuse me.
And I'll leave it to others to give a full accounting of what has happened so far.
A full accounting?
But I will say this. Instead of an administration working to advance America's highest ideals, we are witnessing the wholesale abandonment of those ideals.
I love watching her talk so much. It's like she just discovered the word ideals today. What? They tracked the camera to her movements? Let me see this again.
But sadly,
oh my gosh,
we have seen quite the opposite.
The C-SPAN Chiron
over these
is
past
not moving.
few.
So what they did, I've never seen that before. That's so bizarre. I've never seen that. So you can do something with image stabilization. So you see I'm moving around on camera. Those on radio, I'm very sorry. But I'm moving around. The camera angle is not moving. If something is stabilized with like my face is what's being tracked, then the camera scene moves with the person. By C-SPAN's logo, the Chiron down here, that's what this lower third is called, the Chiron. By that not moving, that means the actual official journo feed from Kamala's event is this weird stabilized like NFL action shot. Let's see if it's in the next one, because she does start talking about people that she loves, and it's the most bizarre endorsement I've ever seen. That she goes straight for every loser in the Democratic Party, like the worst people they could put forward. Here's Kamala.
Including congressional leaders like Cory Booker, Chris Van Hollen, Chris Murphy, Jasmine Crockett, Maxwell Cross, AOC, and Bernie Sanders.
So first of all, going straight for the socialists, excellent move there. She's trying to get in good with them so that they don't stab her in the back like they did with Chuck Schumer. You noticed that, right? That again, we've said before, all of the Democrats who for such a long time were backstabbing each other and backstabbed those above them. Now they're the older generation, and all of the youths are stabbing them in the back, and they're like, gee, I didn't see this coming. And Kamala Harris, like Jasmine Crockett, yeah. I'm surprised she didn't say, what up, sista? Like, since, both she and Jasmine Crockett enjoy code switching as much as they do. Radio crew will catch you in a second for some awful tweets. We're going to go through some of these real winners on the live stream. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. So there is a little bit of, I'll be real with you here for a second. There is in fact not just one Jasmine Crockett clip today, but in fact,
answer there, the Daily Double.
2 Jasmine Crockett clips. I'm so excited. What an opportunity. Thanks for the woo. Okay, so first of all, we got Jasmine Crockett, the legal scholar, because nothing says legal expertise like having the inability to define what you consider a civil offense. She has no idea how to do this because she's, both untalented and illiterate, which seem to go hand in hand in Congress. So here's Jasmine Crockett making the case, again, on an 80-20 issue that illegal immigration, it's not a crime.
It is not a criminal violation to enter the country illegally. It's not a criminal. It's a crime. It's not a crime, which is why they're so frustrated, because they really want our local law enforcement to go out and round up people when they could be looking out for the murderers and the sexual abusers as well as the robbers. They want them to go and round people up.
Does she know that the people that ICE is rounding up are in fact the robbers and the murderers and the rapists? Does she not know? She doesn't know. Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the upstanding Maryland father. We've discovered yet another court order in which the dude's now wife, then girlfriend, was like, I have a recording of him saying that he's going to kill me. Ah, man, I sure hope that cops are looking out for the murderers and the stabbers and the... But she doesn't want that either, though, because she doesn't want the police in certain neighborhoods where there's a lot of crime. So when does she want police? I'm sorry, I'm actually trying to break down Jasmine Crockett's line of thought, and really she's just playing tic-tac-toe. So we'll talk about some logic, right? We'll get into the logical side. Maybe how would you feel? You know, let's see that argument from Crockett.
As far as I'm concerned, you randomly kidnapping folk and you throwing them out of the country against their civil rights, against their constitutional rights. And frankly, how would they feel if some other country decided that they were going to just start throwing people randomly in our country?
Gee, man, what if what if Venezuela let a bunch of mentally insane gang members out of their prisons and gave them bus rides to the United States? Man, wouldn't that be weird? Wouldn't it be strange if you actually had a targeted effort by Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua to come into the United States? We'll talk a little bit later about the federal judge that's decided the smart move is to try saying that the Alien Enemies Act is not actually meant for organized gang members. Which is beautiful. But alas, last but not least, we got Representative Hank Johnson. This is incredible. In fact, you know what? No, I'm going to save the Representative Hank Johnson one for Jerry Lopez. We're going to do some awful tweets up next. It is, in fact, one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. So remember I'll prep everyone. Remember the poem, First They Came for... the trade unionists, they came for the Jews, all of that. Well, now we're going to get like really, really gross with it, of course. We'll be back in a second for Awful Tweets. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast.
Awful tweets, the ones that no one ever deletes. Awful tweets on the Tony Kinnett Show.
On 93 WIPC.
We got Jerry Lopez. He's at Indy Spanglish over on X. Jerry, are you ready for one of the best Awful Tweet segments we've ever gotten submissions for?
Hey, I am 100% ready, Tony. Last Thursday was a banger. I'm ready for the follow-up.
Well, it's downright special. I mean, we've got just some real humdingers here. So up first, we've got Harry Sisson, the Democrat influencer who's known for soliciting nudes from young women, which, Democrat standards, good for him here. So he says, quote, "We just learned that Trump deported a U.S. citizen child who is suffering from metastatic cancer. They were given no access to their medication, no access to their treating physician, and ICE knew about their condition ahead of time. This administration is the epitome of evil." What do you think, Jer?
Yeah, first of all, that's hilarious. As far as I know, they don't deport any U.S. citizens. They'll give the parent the option to take the kid with them or leave them here with a relative. But the best way to make sure this doesn't happen is don't come over here illegally.
That's true. And, your hunch is 110% correct, because it just so turns out Homeland Security pointed out that the mother made the choice to take her kid with her back to Honduras. So, gee, just amazing how that works out. I too am shocked at, them doing exactly what they said they were going to do, quite clearly. All right, this next one we're going to play here. It's from the last segment. I saved it for you. I stopped in the middle of the segment. I'm like, I'm saving this for Jerry. All right. This is a Representative Hank Johnson, who is so excited to compare illegal immigration deportation to the Holocaust. He tries to do the poem, like the first they came for the, and I didn't care because I wasn't. Yeah. So here's listen to his example. Oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it was real. And it's real.
First they came for the Latinos outside of the Home Depots trying to get work so that they could feed their families.
Wait for it.
And I didn't say anything about it because I'm not a Latino at the Home Depot.
Wow.
I mean,
wow.
Is there anything more racist than what this guy just said?
I'm wondering if the next example, I'm very tempted to come up with some stereotypical examples.
What?
They came for the black people at, and I didn't say anything because I don't like.
Tony, if you just put that on there, the left will try to end you. That's the crazy part. They are allowed to say the most outlandish things, and nobody goes, "Dude, that is super racist." What you just said.
I can't. I really There's a shot right after that where you see him looking down with his eyes closed. I bet his staffer is in the back just smoking a whole pack in like 3 seconds. My goodness, the calls.
All right, not a Latino at Home Depot.
This next one's from Ilhan Omar. So I have a friend over at the Daily Caller. He's a stellar dude, and he had the gall as a reporter. He's from the Daily Caller News Foundation. Which is some really great straight reporting. He's a great guy. His name is Miles Morrell. He approached Ilhan Omar today to talk a little bit about, just asking her some questions about this illegal immigration stuff. Her response is something special.
Sure. Congresswoman Omar, I'm Miles Morrell with the Daily Caller News Foundation. Do you think more of your Democratic colleagues should be traveling to El Salvador to advocate on behalf of Alvarado Garcia?
I think you should off. Yeah, that's
I'm sorry, what? Wow. Congresswoman?
Off.
Who should?
You.
Why me?
We're not taking any questions right now, but here you go.
Yeah, thanks.
So the staffer jumps in and is like, oh, no, don't say anything else, please, Ilhan. Oh, my God. So what do you think of old Ilhan Omar?
So, first of all, that is hilarious that that's her response. And people need to remember that if you live in a state where these people are going to visit this guy, that's your tax dollars. Now, I don't want you to bury the lead on this story, Tony. The best part about this awful tweet was a response that I saw to Ilhan Omar, where she said, I said what I said. You and all your miserable trolls can F off. And one guy named Tony Kinnett said, you talk to your brother husband with that mouth?
Now, look, I'm not going to say that was perhaps the best choice. But in her case, that was the incest choice. So moving right along, we're going to get emails. Senator Ed Markey, I guess, had his team get out and take photos. The man went to FedEx Kinko's or something. And he's like, I want some big index cards. And they're like, oh, like for like your pocket? He's like, no, I want some big index cards. Like the kind that the clearinghouse guy would like bring to your house to let you know the check is coming. So he says, Trump's first 100 days are a blueprint of cruelty, chaos, and corruption. We put it all on display because silence is complicity and we choose action. Have you zoomed in? Have you read any of these cards?
Yeah, I saw some of these, but here's my question. Isn't that the side of climate change? Why are we wasting so much paper on this nonsense?
I'm just glad taxpayers are paying this guy to play menopause bingo on the lawn.
Listen, one of them said Gulf of America. One said threaten Canada. Threaten to take the Panama Canal. Like, these aren't things that even happen besides Gulf of America.
He also says withdrew the U.S. from the WHO. By the way, that's not the AP way to refer to the World Health Organization. It's just WHO. So the Trump withdrew the U.S. from the WHO.
How do you like gutted U.S. aid? Thank God.
Created Doge. Oh, the horror. I love it so much.
We'll put another gravestone for that one.
Oh, man. This is, again, thank you guys who have submitted just some real stinkers this week. These are awful. We're going to keep going here. So the next one is from James Carville. James Carville, again, the mastermind of the Bill Clinton campaigns. He's been calling David Hogg, the vice chair of the DNC, and also Rachel Maddow with slightly longer hair. David Hogg's been talking about primarying incumbents and like some really far to the left stuff. James Carville said, somebody needs to get him out of the DNC. They need to sue him. They need to shut him up. Well, he's finally caved, Jerry. He says, just call David Hogg. He reminded me of the story of, after the Battle of Shiloh, Henry Halleck urged President Lincoln to fire Ulysses S. Grant. Lincoln said, I can't fire him. This man fights. David Hogg fights. The DNC needs him.
Yeah, well, James Carville, for those of you who don't know who he is, he also moonlit as the coach from Waterboy, also known as Raging Cajun. The RNC needs David Hogg at the DNC. Everywhere this guy goes, he loses. He tried to come out with a bootleg My Pillow that got shut down immediately. I mean, let's keep him as involved as we can on the left. That's great news for us.
I love it. I think that James Carville bowing down and just like kissing up to David Hogg, of all people. Again, because you see this with Kamala Harris as well. They're coming out. They're going to, go all in. Oh, he's the best. We love him. He's fantastic. More power to you, please.
Yeah. Mama said I got kissed a ring.
Here we go. Reuters. This article was sent into us this morning. Don't blame renewables for Spain's power outage. Spain and Portugal went like to 80% renewables and they had a blackout like a couple of weeks later. Jerry, I sent this article to you.
We had this conversation last week, and I don't remember exactly what the tweet was, but once again, it's burying the story under the headline, right? So the headline says don't blame renewable fuels, but the story almost out the gate says the issue appears to be the management of renewables in the modern grid. So it is the renewable food. I mean, they don't expect you to read that far is the problem.
I cannot tell you how much I love this timeline where right around when all these media outlets are trying to say you should trust us, they can't stop doing this. And they're shocked no one's reading them anymore. Well, that's not fair. A few are reading them. Me, because I get to make fun of them on the air. And it's fantastic. Okay, this last one is for you because we talked about the 60 Minutes guy who covered for Kamala Harris. The dude was canned, right? And so CBS got all mad and did a little, they're going to call out parent company Paramount because they're mad. So Chris Murphy, one of the guys Kamala Harris praised in her exciting little comeback speech, he said, it's called corruption. Trump tells a media company he'll give them unfavorable regulatory treatment if they criticize him, and the company tells its journalists to censor the truth. What?
Yeah, first of all, that has nothing to do with why he left. He left because they're being sued for $10 billion by Donald Trump. So when you want to think of the situation he's in, think of what happened to Tucker Carlson at Fox, right? Where they are trying to fire people at the top to reach some part of a settlement, I assume. But yeah, he's stepping down because they're being sued out the butt.
I just don't understand what unfavorable regulatory treatment are you talking? It's the same regulatory treatment that this show has during election season.
Are we talking about editing videos for presidential candidates?
I'm going to make this clear. So there was a time right before the election in 24 when a lot of Republican candidates offered to or asked to come on the show, and I said no. And a few of them got a little annoyed, and their teams were like, "Why? Why not?" And I said, "Well, because I would have to offer airtime to your opponent, and the show's national now. Yep. I don't have the time to offer equal fair treatment time to everyone. So the solution is." No one. You got to play by the rules if you're on the air. Just the way it is. All right, Jerry Lopez, thanks for a fantastic week of awful tweets. We will catch you real soon, and we'll kick it over to commercial. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. All right, boys, girls, and squirrels. A couple of last notes here because we weren't able to get through just quite everything. This is one that Jerry found and sent to me. I want you all to see this because it hurts me. It hurts my soul that this is a news story. Quote, influencer who sold fart jars. Plans to move abroad after a breakup with a U.S. senator. Quote, I do not feel safe, end quote. I'm sorry. What? What? Every word in this headline makes the entire thing worse. As I read this headline, my hope for humanity plummets with each word. You can track it. Producer Daniel is a data guy. The man could chart out my soul leaving my body. Influencer. It's bad enough. We're already starting down. Who sold? Influencers who claim to be entrepreneurs. It bothers me. You're not an entrepreneur. You're a child with an online shopping account. You're not an entrepreneur. I'm selling these like Chinese dropship things they gave me Amazon links for. Yeah, okay, Jennifer. I'm going to get messages too. There's going to be some influencer named Jennifer who's going to feel called out because, an opportunity to whine and complain is the influencer way. Okay, influencer who sold fart jars. All right, I don't know whether you all need Jesus or you need to meet him. Because my goodness, not your goodness ain't anywhere near here with selling fart jars. If you're buying fart jars, I think that's grounds for deportation. Straight to CCOT. El Salvador needs a fart jar wing. After breakup with U.S. Senator. Oh, that's actually pretty normal. To be fair, that's one of the more tame things about a U.S. Senator relationship. I mean, I will remind you that the story broke of a bunch of Democrat staffers who had a time of group naked fun together in the Senate chamber. And when the story broke, a lot of Americans were like, oh my gosh. And I want you all to know that the inside, like the beltway, like inside the beltway, inside DC, everyone's like, like kind of like a Tuesday. I mean, really the issue is that they just didn't reserve the room. And because the cleaning crew comes at certain times in the evening. I mean, and then lastly, I do not feel safe. I would love to see the Watergate investigation on that. I would love, from the bottom of my cold Hoosier heart, to see the senator who dated Fart Jar Girl. Isn't that a conversation that you'd maybe have? Like, honey, if we're going to date, if we're going to, be close, you and I, like, if you want to, sell hot air, you can run for office. That was good, huh? Yeah, I thought so. I can't. Every week it gets worse. So you send in your awful tweets. We appreciate them. We've got a couple of unnecessary hot takes up next. Wow, awful tweets next to unnecessary hot takes. It's a heck of an evening to be home for. We're going to head over to the break and bring the radio crew back from commercial like we're raising them from the dead. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
Good evening, everybody.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
So there's this trend inside the Beltway. Well, actually, let's back up a little bit. I was in D.C. for the last week for a couple of reasons. And while I'm there, you do run into a lot of journalists. It is really weird how small that town is. It is a large city, but you do see people walking to and fro back, from the U.S. Capitol and other government offices and media offices quite consistently. And the air of arrogance that journalists have when they strut is real special. I mean, real, you should have been bullied more in school special. And there's an idea. So I'm not a reporter. I'm not. I have never claimed to be a reporter. I was an investigative columnist, which means I'll give you the facts and then I'll tell you what I think, because I never have ever hid the fact that I am biased. Absolutely. Because I don't think there is any such thing as unbiased. You can try to limit your bias. You can try to explain your bias so people can see through it. You can't be unbiased. But journalists who believe that their unbiasedness that they pretend that they have somehow gives them incredible authority to treat interview subjects like trash, and not have a conversation, which, by the way, is what an actual like interview is supposed to be. It's supposed to be like an actual conversation. Peter Moran from ABC News, whose headlines are so pathetic, I've gotten tired of fact-checking them. Peter Moran interviewed Trump, and I haven't gotten the chance to play this clip on the show yet, and I'm going to just because this is a beautiful moment in media where Peter Moran clearly knows that the tattoos on Garcia's knuckles indicate MS-13, but he's going to desperately try to spin it, and you can see the panic in his eyes when Trump is having none of it.
Murderers, criminals in this country, we have to get them out, and we're doing it. And you'll pick out one man, but even the man that you picked out, he said he wasn't a member of a gang, and then they looked, and on his knuckles he had MS-13.
There's a dispute.
Well, wait a minute.
There's a dispute on that. Okay, so again, the ABC journalist in this case, Peter Moran, or any other left-wing media outlet host, they go in already making assumptions, so they can say again. He's already qualified Trump's answers as though he's the arbiter. So Trump makes a statement, and then Peter Moran acts as the arbiter of the U.S. Constitution, and he says, oh, yes, well, by law, indicating that Garcia hasn't been served due process, which is, believe it or not, under dispute. So now he's ready to call dispute when Trump says MS-13 symbols on his knuckles. So Peter Moran has decided this is the hill he's going to die on, and die he does.
Wait a minute. He had MS-13 on his knuckles tattoo.
He had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Okay. So now he's realized he's goofed. Because if Trump uses the special journalist language here, which Trump doesn't really futz around with anymore, and honestly, good for him, because playing journo games, you end up winning journo prizes, which means like a box of fudge at a Holiday Inn. I don't recommend it. So again, if Trump says, no, MS-13 symbols, again, the marijuana leaf, the M, the smiley face, the S, the cross with the crossbar cut off so it's a 1, the 1, and then a 3-dot skull. That would be the 3. That's the symbology. But Peter Moran is going to hop on this and claim, oh, no, actually, he didn't Sharpie it on his knuckles, so you're wrong.
Wait a minute. Hey, Terry.
He did not have the letter MS-13.
It says M.
You see how he splits that down immediately? He didn't have the letter
MS-13.
That was Photoshopped. So let me
That was Photoshopped. Terry, you can't do that. Hey, they're giving you the big break of a lifetime. You're doing the interview. I picked you because, frankly, I never heard of you, but that's okay. But I picked you, Terry, but you're not being very nice. He had MS-13 tattooed.
We'll agree to disagree. I want to move on to something else.
Terry. Do you want me to show you the picture?
I saw the picture.
And you think it was Photoshopped? Well,
here we go.
Don't Photoshop it. Go look at his hand.
I love interviews like this. I do, because he boxed Peter into a corner, and if you think that Peter walks away from this looking better, I don't know what to tell you. And that brings us over to the impeachment. So the Democrats are really just going to throw in all of their weight behind the Garcia guy. The Trump administration has political soft targets, meaning that there are areas of instability that you could point to. But the Democrats don't actually have a plan for the economy, so they can't really talk about the economy, especially when most of their voting demographics are extremely in favor of trade protectionism. So what do they have? They have Signalgate, kind of, which flopped, and they've got Garcia, kind of, and it's such a losing issue for them. And they have now decided, again, so I guess that the Al Green waving his cane around, going, dastardly deeds that he done, it wasn't good enough. And so now they got to get out Tanadar, who I have never heard of, but I am not convinced is not wearing a wig he bought from a car salesman. I'm just not convinced. Tanadar in Congress, after he released a video, here we go. He's going to whip out the impeachment proceedings against Trump here.
Just last week, federal agents attacked our principles of federalism by arresting Judge Hannah C. Duggan.
I love it when Democrats pretend to know what federalism is. That's not what federalism means. Federalism is the separation of powers between states and the federal government along the interpretation of carried out duties and responsibilities. If you commit a federal crime, the feds have a right to arrest you for committing a federal crime in the federal United States.
Of Wisconsin inside a courthouse because Donald Trump and Kash Patel did not like how Judge Duggan administered her courtroom. A state courtroom, I remind you. arresting state judges for exercising powers reserved to the states, powers that concern the lives, liberties, and property of the people of Wisconsin, should be a red line for all of us.
So they're going to pull out the red line language again. So he's filing like all these articles of impeachment because, oh, he's doing the things and the stuff. Oh, we're going to get him. Okay, go ahead. Make it about this. Please, by all means, get Al Green, get Tanadar out there yelling in your weird wigs and your fancy gold cane. Get Jasmine Crockett out there. Have her get a new accent. Get AOC out there yelling and screaming. I mean, it's going to be a fun time. These are the people Kamala Harris loves. Openly, she says it. All right? The very last of the corporate-y Democrats have been shivved so that the insane progressives could handily take the party and slap it around. We've got one more video. It would be Trump's response, but we don't have enough time on the radio for it because they've got to fade their stuff out. So in a spirit of good, loving kindness here, we'll catch you guys real soon on the radio side. We're going to stick around for just a minute or two of bonus tonus over on the live stream. This is the Tony Kinnett cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC. Producer Nick says he's 70. He's 70? Tanadar's 70 years old? Ew. Ew. That's wrong. That's wrong. That man, yikes. How about a big bag of nope? How about that? How about leave? How about that one? Okay. Anywho. Apparently, we have another Ilhan Omar clip that I didn't get to today. We'll go back and catch that in a second. Here is President Trump's response to another round of impeachment hearings. This was in Michigan, in Macomb County.
He said, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to start the impeachment of Donald Trump. What the hell did I do? Here we go again. They want to impeach me. This lunatic.
So the crowd's now booing because, but at first, what Donald Trump said is really freaking funny. And this is probably Trump's best defense of any time ever. Now, like any time that Trump comes out and he's like, look at how stupid you look. I mean, come on, what are you doing? And that's funny. You cannot out-entertain the entertainer. One more time, just for me.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am going to start the impeachment of Donald Trump. What the hell did I do? Here we go again. They want to impeach me. This lunatic. This lunatic, he was up. Actually, I had the television way down, and I said to our great First Lady, listen, did I just hear I was being impeached again? We're getting good at this, though. No, they've gone totally crazy. These people, and you know what? They've totally lost their confidence, too. They can't even tell a lunatic like this dumb guy that said it. And then you have the other one that's always with the cane. He's always impeaching. He raises his cane. He always impeaches. But they have no control over those people. They have no control, and the reason is they've lost their confidence.
I mean, he's right. I mean, he's 100% correct. One other clip that we weren't able to play is Ilhan Omar. Again, the rule of law and order, people. Again, this is what they're all going to double down on. Ilhan Omar talking about her highest priority. You would say the people of Minnesota, the district that she's from, doing work for those people? No. Oh, not at all. Ye of far too much faith, Ilhan.
If they thought the first 100 days of chaos would break us, they were wrong. Because across this country...
I don't know. I don't know, man. If they thought that getting us to throw poop everywhere and go to El Salvador and yell outside the Department of Education like Maxine Waters, what is your ID number? I mean, if they, Al Green shaking his cane, Bernie Sanders said, I'm at Coachella here to tell you need to give me lots of money so I can private jet around and steal your rights away and maybe your pudding. I mean, I love it. They've completely lost. But here, if you think that you have seen us act crazy I mean, this is like having an act like a crazy girlfriend, and then she tells you that like that's not her final form. She's like, oh, you wouldn't like it when I get crazy, and you're like, oh no, there's more.
They thought the first 100 days of chaos would break us. They were wrong. Because across this country, millions of us are standing up for our human rights.
Millions of us. I don't know why that comes across as the Arrested Development. You know, there are dozens of us. Dozens. Millions of us. She says, yes, I too have noticed the millions. Okay.
Our democracy. Judges are fighting back to block these unconstitutional executive orders. Here in Congress, we are fighting back every single day.
Notice she doesn't say how. She doesn't say how. I love this. So the Democrats, so Chuck Schumer came out and he admitted they put forward progressive judges on the bench so that they would be activists. He said that very clearly, very overtly. It was one of the wildest things I think I've ever seen, ever. And then, for kicks and or giggles, he then said, well, I'll tell you what we're doing over in Congress. And then he didn't say anything. He stopped talking because Democrats are doing nothing in Congress. They had, remember their little shadow hearing government thing they had? Like once, they like pushed a bunch of middle school lunch tables together in the Senate chamber. And they were like, we now call the super secret squirrel club of senators to service. All right, up one, we've got Jamal from Wendy's, and he says Trump undercooked his burger. And like that was the shadow government thing. Okay, and the Democrats aren't doing anything else. If they said what Republicans do during an opposition period, which is, no, Biden shouldn't be doing this. Instead, here's the bill. Or Republicans are putting this bill forward. It's probably not going to go anywhere, but this is this thing called the Lake and Riley Act. And they ran then on those bills passed. But so far, Democrats have got, Trump's really mean, and MS-13's not allowed to vote for me anymore. And also, I'm Ilhan Omar, and I married my brother to get in the country because no one would marry me in Somalia.
Congress, we are fighting back every single day. We are fighting to protect immigrant families from mass detention and deportation. We are fighting to prevent horrific cuts to Medicaid, SNAP, and Social Security. It won't be easy, but we must continue to organize, to speak out, and to build a future that reflects our highest ideals.
Ideals! Hey! Ideals are back, baby! So, did you hear any action words in there? This was a tried and tested nonsensical thing from my time in academia. When I was getting master's degrees at Ball State, I had people in my cohort who would talk like this every single day. And there is a bit of an art to getting in front of people and saying nothing whatsoever. There is. You can get out there and say, we're going to fight back. And even though it's hard, every day we're going to wake up and remind people that we have something worth fighting for. Because in this country of ideals with the significance of the passage of time, you too can be a part of a movement that understands and works for Americans. Nothing in there is an action verb that actually means anything. Nothing in there lowers prices for families. Nothing in there protects them from crime. Nothing in there enshrines rights. Because the Democrats aren't known for doing that. The Democrats' entire strategy is make sure there's this racial quota on every board in the country. Number two, put dudes in lingerie in the classroom in reading events. And then number three, eat bugs. Yeah, there you go. Who would have thought that after it was unpopular, they didn't have something raring and ready to go as an offer? Incredible. Well, we're going to be back tomorrow. One final show before the week is over. Appreciate y'all. Good to be back home. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC. Take care.